Well, I welcome you all again to Monday, November 7th for the Holistic Health 380 class. And in this class today, what we'll be going over, we'll have a guest presenter, Robert Gorter. I'll make a few comments and I'll do this right now and what is upcoming. And that will be for today's agenda. At least for many of you, if you did, a few of you did the optional listening to the Shankar Vedantam Hidden Brain podcast, You Better, But Better. It's a great podcast, and I think it really is helpful for many people how to change your habits and for your own projects. What I did is, if you make comments on that on the forum, as a forum, you can get extra credit for it for your grades as well. That's also true for the Evolutionary Perspective Part 2, which focused last week on some of the potential dangers of plastics, radiation, and many other things from the evolutionary perspective. I'll keep those open so you can go back over them, look at them, and comment on it too if you want to have extra credit. What we'll do today, we'll review practice 15, that's the self-healing imagery. We'll review practice 16, that is the whole week, the practice you've been doing. And let me go through the assignments of next week to be really clear. So when you leave the class, please do the class assessment. We'll continue with practice 16, week 2. That is the major self practice. That's the continuation of your self-healing practice. Remember, there is the reading of Blazer that looks at the human biome that will eventually be due before the final. There's another optional extra credit, articles and videos, which may be useful for this, that allows you to get extra credit. And there's a forum, which are 2 videos on diet, and please give your comments on those. I think that's the major part. And with much, let me make a few more comments about Robert Gorter. All of you already have seen his video. And like Janine Shepherd, he's an example of recovery from stage 4 cancer in this case, without doing chemotherapy, because basically the prognosis was almost 0, regardless of what you would have done. It may have extended his life only a couple of months. And yet now he's here many years later, still alive and going. If you want to read more about this or about the approach Robert has developed, we did a book together called Fighting Cancer, a non-toxic approach to treatment. We published, and I posted the whole book on iLearn, as many of you may know. So you can download that for yourself as well. I'm really honored that he is joining us today from Cologne, Germany. That means for his tide, it's truly a sacrifice. It's 3:30 a.m. in the morning. And I know how that feels because when I was in Italy in the first part of the semester, that was like, my God. And I look at Robert, I can't believe he is so alert at this moment. But before I let him speak, I want to make one more comment. He will be a visiting scholar this spring semester at San Francisco State, which is really remarkable. He'll be flying in from Germany for the first part of the semester. And because of that opportunity that he's here, we are offering a special class, Holistic Health 650 on Anthroposophic medicine, which covers a very broad range on this approach that includes biodynamic farming. It includes understanding of the Waldorf schools. It includes ways how you can enhance your immune system, treatment of cancer, very open-ended. But it's uniquely taught in a totally different format. It's 3 units. It does count also for the GE, but mainly what is interesting, it will be taught the first 3 weekends of the semester. So it's going to in person. So you're going to be stuck in person, doing exercises, practicing discussions, etc. I think it's a great way to interconnect and learn about this unique perspective, whether you agree with it or not. But it's for dialogue and getting a whole different worldview. So the class will be for like Saturday, Sunday, then the following Saturday and Sunday, and then I think the third one will, I think, is a Saturday. That's the major class connections you're doing, and then there's also a research paper due and other things, But I think it's just phenomenal, and that we have the opportunity to have Robert here. So if you're intrigued in this whole area, please, that I would really let other students know as well of this unique opportunity to be in, to take a unique class with Robert, who is our visiting scholar for the spring semester. Okay, all of you have already, I'm going to turn this off, I think, my stop share. Now, I can look at you or you can look at me. whatever you would like. And about Robert's, so what I want to do, what I want to do for the next section really is turn it over to Robert and to all of you, because you have all attended, and please shout out questions you may want to ask him, or if you don't want to shout them out, put them onto the chat, and I'll read them to Robert. That will be easily done. And there are many topics some of you have asked about. It's like, how do you reestablish circadian rhythms? Possibly, what about fever? At what point should you be worried about fever? You know, or or personally, how did you handle being diagnosed with cancer, etc.? There are many of these. And so I think I'll give it over to Robert. He may say one or two words, and then for the next 30 minutes or so, at his 3:30 time in the morning, it is Robert, thanks so much for using the alarm clock to wake up, or you drank too much coffee last night and never went to bed. I don't know.
Thank you. Well, you know, you make me shy. And I always feel, I sometimes joke, but I feel like if Erik introduces me, he says so many good things of me that I feel I'm at my own funeral. Because, you know, when people die, they only tell good things about them. So Erik says good things, and I can only return that. I know Erik now since 1983, and I think he's
I was just a little boy.
Well, an excellent teacher, but also a researcher. So I'm also happy to be here.
So maybe we should start for 1 minute, Robert. The question I would ask is: you had essentially terminal cancer, or stage 4 cancer. What did you do? How come you made the choice to do this strange approach? Just for literally 2 minutes, and then I'm going to throw it up for anybody. Any questions?
Okay. Well, I was diagnosed when I was 24, and I just started my medical clinic and so, and then I had a germ cell, an embryonic cell carcinoma, and that means that it was very, very aggressive, and usually, especially it occurs in men between 20 and 30. So I was right on there, also quite a statistics, and I already knew it was bad. So I was operated under local anesthesia, because I already knew that general anesthesia will suppress your immune system. Anyway, so then I was proposed a therapy with chemotherapy and radiation, would live on the blood of other people. Said no, thank you, and I did nothing of that. No operation, no chemotherapy, nothing. I treated myself mainly with mistletoe. And so, of course, in Europe, mistletoe is more commonly known and used in cancer therapy. So I took mistletoe, and that is now 50 years ago, 51 years ago, and I'm still here, completely free of cancer. Parts of my body, and so they said, "Wow, this is really already bad news." And anyway, so I did mistletoe, and I was already a vegetarian, so I couldn't change much of my diet, but I did. I made one thing to mention about nutrition. Then also, from that moment on, I was flooded with cancer patients, although they didn't know about me. So, and also nutrition is important, and so organic, but especially biodynamic nutrition. So I started restaurants in Amsterdam, and not only that people could have a good dinner and healthy, but also cooking classes. So I also did this specifically for patients and the beloved ones, to offer them cooking classes during the day and on. And also later schools. And so anyway, so that's my story. So I refused any kind of chemotherapy, radiation, anything, because I knew it would only make me suffer. It won't really do much. Now, and if I live 1 week longer on the blood of other people, then no thank you. So I said, well, then I proved myself that I can do it myself. So here I am.
Just as a note, it's sort of sad to say that if you look at over the last 10 years of all the chemotherapies that have been developed, or the different expensive drugs that have been developed, at best they extend the life of the patients by 2 to 3 months at best. That's it. And what is interesting, statistically, the more expensive the drug is, and some of are $100,000 for using it, the less effective they end up to be.
Yeah.
So there's an inverse. Its article was just published on the efficacy of the drug. But that's my. So the question really is,
if I can say one more thing, and that is about treatment. That is so that in Germany, the German government, they did a study it took like 30 years, and they could really, and also by a statistician, so I can judge it. They found that if, at least in Northern Europe, if somebody above 50 takes one little tablet of vitamin D per day, so 10 micrograms, then there would be only in Germany 30,000 less people dying from cancer. Now imagine how much, and nobody could say I can't afford it, because how much does one tablet of vitamin D cost? That is like $5 or $10 at much. That's everybody can afford it. But just by doing that, only vitamin D as a food supplement, it would cost in Germany, with about 85 million people, 30,000 people less dying from cancer. That means look at the suffering, and then also the costs. Yeah, so the burden to the society financially, but also the personal burden to the patient. So anyway, just vitamin D3, so 10 micrograms per day. Yeah.
It's interesting, Robert. I wasn't thinking about that, but the optional reading and watching are 2 videos on vitamin D, which make similar points. It was purely synchronistic, because if you look at people with COVID-19 who have died or get very seriously sick of COVID, their vitamin D levels are very low. Yeah. Although the most recent research shows that if you give people, when they are sick, vitamin D, it has no effect upon outcome. That to me makes sense, because these processes are very long. You have to really mobilize your whole immune system. But anyway, I don't want to ask questions yet. Please, anybody has a question, put your hand up or speak out. 1 second.
Hi, Dr. Gorter.
Hi.
My name's Deanna. Hi. You look so sharp at 4 in the morning. But I wanted to ask a question about, I noticed the non-toxic approach to treating the cancer, and I was looking over the self-care section. How do you want to go over so my self-healing project, I'm working with a lot of self-negative down talk, and I'm utilizing the practices I've learned with Dr. Peper as well. But I want a little refresh of an approach, I guess. I'm just kind of I'm focusing on gut health and making healthy lifestyle choices. So perfect.
Yeah. Dia, that's a great question, but I think I'll me postpone it for a sec. But let me put it in a different way. Robert, I'll reframe the piece of ink. Robert would be really skilled in. Robert, for students especially, what can they do for a lifestyle? How can they stabilize their circadian rhythm, which is a major factor?
Yeah. Well, of course, there are many components, because also there are no 2 identical lives, but a couple of components which are there. That is, of course, the nutrition. That is also how your mind and your heart, how they work together. And of course, also stress and stress management. Now, I know stress is a little bit a fashionable word, but it is also so, for instance, with circadian rhythm. Maybe I should give me 2 minutes for explain that 3 minutes. This namely so that all living beings, also the animals, but the humans, of course, most, we are so subdued to a 24-hour rhythm. And they call that circadian rhythm. And you can also measure that, for instance, by the core body temperature. So if you measure the temperature rectally, just under the tongue, but rectally, that's the most reliable way of measuring the body temperature. And now you see, we also have this also on the presentation, that early in the morning, so around the time you wake up or sunrise, that you see your core body temperature is the lowest. During the day, also when you don't do much, you sit all day, you're a couch potato. At the end of the day, the temperature is at the highest. Yeah, so that is about a difference of 0.8, 0.9 degrees
centigrade. So that's about 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say at least 1 full degree also Fahrenheit. And you can see when you're healthy, and that's interesting, that's a signature of your health, when you have this 24-hour rhythm, where you can sort of make a sinus curve through it. Yeah, and then there's a sign actually good condition, good health. And what we have shown, also others did that, but we did that very carefully until at the University in Berlin. We could show that cancer patients, especially when they have active cancer, but also in general, and also those who have a tendency, a condition to get cancer, yeah, they always have in the morning a lower core body temperature, more than 1 degree lower. But then it comes during the day, there is hardly an increase of the core body temperature. So they don't have the sinus curve, yeah, and it's and that is so when we say a stiff line. That is also not a good sign. And now what we could show, for instance, just with mistletoe, patients start using mistletoe twice a week, a little subcutaneous injection, what a diabetic patient does 2-3 times a day. And then you see that after about 8 weeks, there is a significant improvement in the core body temperature and improvement of the circadian rhythm if they take that of 8 weeks mistletoe. So especially we found that those patients who have that quickly, a restoration of the circadian rhythm, they have a much better outcome. Many more people who go in complete remission if they can restore, so to speak, their circadian rhythm.
I think if you think about it, all of you, many of you have had, or some of you have had jet lag. I mean, you know how you feel when you have severe jet lag, how your whole body doesn't quite feel well. You could argue, in a sense, if you have jet lag qualities like that a lot, I mean, that is your circadian rhythm is out of phase or not working well. And so what you could say for a number of cancer patients, when you look at that, their rhythm is really almost absent or less. And when you reestablish that, they do better. And in the work, from Robert's perspective, mistletoe would be one of the preparations. So maybe you want to explain a bit what is mistletoe and how is it prepared, or what do you do? Because for most people, we only think of mistletoe, at least I think of mistletoe during the holidays, because I can see, so I hope it's hanging there and I can then find a lovely person to get a kiss.
Yeah. Okay, but that also reflects the mistletoe was used thousands of years in Europe, also pre-Christian times, especially also for animals in fertility. They had cows or sheep that didn't get pregnant. Then if you would feed them for a couple of weeks on mistletoe, then many of them still got pregnant. Yeah, so it is also related to fertility, and therefore had to kiss. Sort of an echo of fertility, but so it was incorporated in Christian tradition that one day, it's Christmas, then kissing under the mistletoe, and that is an echo from ancient times where people knew this effect, and we know this too. But that will also be, I will discuss in my class, the telomeres, because even the MD Anderson Cancer Center in Texas, they would show that if patients, but also you and I, of course, when you take mistletoe for a little while, then you have a significant increase of the telomeres. Now, and that's a whole issue. I don't want to maybe to go into this too much, but you're born with about roughly 30 telomeres. That means all your cells in your body, they can divide on mitosis, so they can multiply about 30 times. Every time a cell divides into 2, I lose a telomere. So therefore we have a built-in clock to die. Yeah, and now you can improve about 30% also when you're 85 with the number of telomeres. So that also has a significant some anti-aging effect, to put it in this term. But we'll also discuss that, and there's a very nice data showing that. And people, well, look at me. People who take the mistletoe, they have, they stay, and they are much more fit, but also physiologically and on a cell level.
So let me go back for the students anyway. Mistletoe, what happens, you harvested it and then it gets extracted. And then what happens is at a very small dilutions, you would inject it subcutaneously right underneath your skin, a very small amount.
Yeah.
And the body then would react to this. And you do this about every 3 days in the morning. And that is almost to help set up your biological clock. Maybe circadian rhythm again.
Okay. Okay, good.
When you do a biopsy of the area where you had that injection, a couple of days later, I think you can see all of a sudden the dendritic cells being, I think, or the killer T cells being more active. Is that correct, Rob?
Yeah. So and that's true. The man is also several young doctors or researchers got a PhD through was dan their doctorvater anyway, especially in Germany, and we could prove many beneficial effects of the mistletoe, yeah, and but also on, because this is the issue that when you get cancer, now we looked at it, and then 98% of all the people who had active cancer, they had a suppressed natural killer cell function. Now, and natural killer cells are white blood cells, T cells in your body, and they are especially there to kill what must be killed. Yeah? And there's also cancer cells. And but when people have active cancer, then their killer cells, they hardly have any motivation to kill. We can measure that really in the laboratory. And also you see again, also about after 2 months, you can see a significant improvement in about 95% of all the cancer patients, that they have an improvement of the natural killer cell function. And that would mean also more able to fight cancer cells.
Just let me put it in context, because I see some questions like, where do you buy this, etc. Remember that anthroposophical physicians exist in the United States. There's a whole society of anthroposophical physicians. They're all normal MDs who then get additional training in this whole other perspective, which is much more in kind of a naturalistic or natural medicine approach often, or much less invasive.
Yeah, maybe I can say, Erik, in all humbleness, but I was a professor of internal medicine, so at 6 universities, 3 continents. Was main, I see, University of California, San Francisco, UCSF as one of my main universities, and I could be the normal full professor, yeah, because any anthroposophic doctor is also fully trained, but you have this whole extra knowledge and skills as a backpack, so to speak, which you always carry with you. Yeah, so I could teach young doctors in the specialty training in an intensive care unit, but I can also talk like this. I have a lot of experience about other approaches, which I would never say as an alternative, but as an addition. So we like to call this anthroposophically extended medicine.
So now there's a question here, the person put it in there. My grandmother gets very sick due to changes in her blood pressure, especially in response to changes in weather. Can mistletoe or other, from an anthroposophical perspective in medicine, what are some options potentially?
Well, because I had to know more about such a thing, because blood pressure or low or high blood pressure can also have various reasons, and also age, but also the condition of your blood vessels. That can also be, I hate the word, but stress. There are certain stress hormones which can also permanently increase your blood pressure, and so there are many reasons. But so it's also the age. But if here it is the grandmother, for instance, what I would, for instance, consider when it's very effective, but and it, also all anthroposophic medicines never have side effects. Yeah. And so I would say there's a scleron. That is a certain medication made already since 1922-23 for elderly people, also when a little bit more forgetful or the blood pressure tends to go up a little bit. There's just scleron, one little tablet under your tongue a day, and I have seen always it takes 6 weeks, 8 weeks to have full effect. But I have seen also in the elderly with these kinds of symptoms linked to becoming older, when they responded very well.
I would think for the specificities, it's probably better to email Robert specifically of that, because that's really almost too difficult to do those kind of medical questions.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a question.
But I offer, if anybody really has a question, a personal question or so, or I can send some literature, but they can always approach me through my email.
And your email is which one is that? r.gorter?
That is r.gorter 7 at gmail.com. So
I'll put it into the
and then the 7.
I'll just put it into the chat.
Yeah, that's it. Correct.
So let me, there's a question here, since we've talked about, I want to do 2 more things at least. A question about mistletoe. Why don't you just have it as a tea? Why should it be why do you want to do a subcutaneous injection? Why not just make it a tea?
Yeah, well, the thing is that these, I'm an expert in mistletoe. So the most important, if I put it in this way, the molecules which have this significant effect on the immune system, especially your cellular immune system, so the T cells, so to speak, then if you would swallow these active ingredients, they are glycoprotein molecules. They're very big, they're about 140 kilodalton. So therefore, if I would swallow them, they would be digested like little proteins. And therefore, they would lose some of the efficacy, especially to improve immune function. So therefore, it must be, unfortunately, you must circumvent, so go around the digestive tract. So that's not broken down. I have been thinking, and I wish somebody could help me, and I would set up a project, a study to apply mistletoe per suppository. Because anything you put in your rectum, and you would do that twice a week, and a suppository, you don't have to inject, and then also these proteins, these significant proteins are not digested, they circumvent the liver, and they come right away in your blood pressure, in your blood circulation. So that is something I have in mind, and maybe before I go back to heaven, I hope, then I will have started to investigate if suppositories would be helpful. But anyway, so you can't eat and swallow it, because then it will not have its specific efficacy in improving immune function, especially against cancer, against also all chronic viral infections like HIV.
I thought maybe there's another, because of what the people wrote earlier on when they saw your presentation, and that's the question about fever. You know, at what point is fever harmful, or what should you be careful of?
Well, that's right. First of all, and also I even noticed that they teach that at medical schools is that fever is actually not good for you. That means something is wrong, and fever can be the cause of disease, but it's actually the opposite. It is a normal physiological response. If your immune system must be activated, so then the only way to do that, to the best of my knowledge, is to increase core body temperature. And we also have special humans, better than any other mammal, but we are more than a mammal, of course, but we have a very delicate temperature center in your brainstem. And that is very well, your core body temperature is very well regulated out of your brainstem. Yeah, and therefore, you can see how important that is now. And if your immune system must become more active. They sort of pull in its ear and say, hey, and they can only do that with fever. And usually fever is your best friend. But of course, there can be reasons, especially in very small children, that the fever, when it goes up too much, that it can give problems, sort of overshooting of the body, especially of your core body temperature center in your brainstem. So therefore, your doctor, I also have done hundreds of home deliveries, but still in Amsterdam, long before you were born. And that is also the secret of any good delivery, is that you're with the patient and you watch and you once in a while check, but you don't interfere or you don't give instructions and so. And those are always the best home deliveries. And the same is for your fever. If somebody has a fever, you do watchful observation or careful observation, and usually, but of course, a few tricks you can do. And one of the things, but I will teach that also in my class. We'll show that to do. You have like just a very simple lemon wrap. Now, what do? You take 1 or 2 lemons, you squeeze them, you take the lemon juice, you dilute it with some lukewarm water, and then you put a handkerchief or a washcloth, and then you drench it in there and squeeze a little bit, that's not dripping anymore, and then you put that around the calves or the feet also of a little child. And almost always you'll see that the temperature is not suppressed. So, suddenly it is like Tylenol, it's back to too low. No, but then you see that there is a significant improvement, but not a suppression of fever. And that is the secret, especially for children, but also as an adult. This should guide in certain ways, which have been shown very, very effective, that you guide and that you take maybe the peak of the fever out. And people, also adults and children, don't feel well, but you don't suppress. So then you have maybe 1 degree temperature still, and then you're fine, and then 2 days later it's gone. But just by applying 2 or 3 times in a day, maybe some lemon wrap, as we call it. And so that's one option. And the other thing is also orally, but then we would explain first something about the principles of homeopathy. But we also have something made from the honeybee that is remarkable. I've practically never seen that it didn't work. Yeah, and there was even an anthroposophical nurse in the intensive care unit in the close to San Francisco. And in Sebastopol, she was allowed to do a study. She was an intensive care unit nurse, that patients who got a fever in an intensive care unit, she compared. It was not randomized, but she compared. And then those who they sort of did watchful observation, they were not intervened with medication to suppress the fever, so a priori. Then they did much better. They had almost, on average, 3 days shorter stay in the intensive care unit, and they had much, much less complications. So she could prove, really, in her, but it should be once more in medicine. Other people should also repeat it once more. But I really am convinced, it's also my experience, I'm now 51 years practicing medical doctor, that you can really you get the complications, especially in small children, but also in adults and the elderly, if you suppress artificially a fever. Yeah. So, and therefore, you should, what I always think was a doctor in physiological processes, you should carefully watch and maybe help the body to do it in the right way. And that is like not suppressing fever, but help the body to handle it.
If just for all of you, part of the strategy Robert has developed with cancer patients was a combination of using hyperthermia, where you artificially heat the person to induce it. You could say almost an internal fever for a couple of hours, to boost the immune system, and then he would also be self-injected with dendritic cells, which are your own white cells, which are processed in the lab to be revaccinated with that to activate. It's a fairly complex process. You can look, I think the book that I posted has much more of that in there. I realized I want to just go on for a moment. There was a question here for somebody by Alina who had a question about lifestyle changes. And maybe Alina, if you want to ask the question, please do.
Yeah, well, a lifestyle change, it depends how you live.
That's what I'm so asking. Wait, let me see if Alina is here. If she wants to speak up, then speak now. Hello?
Hi. Oh, can you hear me?
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better. Okay.
So first I want to say thank you, Dr. Gorter, for being here with us today. We really appreciate your time. So my question is, in the United States, there are so many changes that we have to make in terms of our health. What would you say are probably the most significant one or two lifestyle changes for somebody who wants to switch to more anthroposophical life?
Yeah, okay. I understood the question. Well, good hearing. And of course, you know, life and lifestyle, it's complex. And I would never say there's only one right way of doing it. But it is so that, for instance, I really think so, especially nowadays, we are exposed to many unnatural things. This from GSMO, so genetically modified foods, substances, to electromagnetic radiation like 5G. It is what is maybe comes to us from satellites around the Earth. So we live in a very, compared to our grandparents, so to speak, your great-grandparents, we live in a very different also environment. And it is very much known. I mean, everybody, also each of the family physician knows that to be exposed to also low grades, but radiation, also electromagnetic fields is a form of radiation, like in your magnetrons or your microwave. And so therefore we are exposed to many things which can each by themselves have a negative influence. So therefore, Rudolf Steiner, who was the founder also of anthroposophic medicine, he said, especially in our century, he mentioned that specifically also why, but I will explain that in my course, that actually everybody should have mistletoe. But of course, he didn't mean that as to support anthroposophical pharmaceutical companies. But he said that, but then he made a little bit of a joke, and he said, well, in the very time we live now, all the big cities, everybody should, and it says, it did like this, should be sprayed, like you do at home when you spray your plants with the mistletoe, because that will be a tremendous help for health and your health condition, and also especially for a very large group of people. And now we know a lot. For instance, one of the things you see happening nowadays is that, but explain that more in detail, in the sense, how does the immune system function? Because normally, when you don't smoke, you don't do things, don't drink, so I always like to say you do nothing which God has forbidden, you still will make at least, as an adult, 100,000 cancer cells. So each of you, where you're sitting, you're making cancer cells. So but don't blame me. And now is it so? The immune system is especially there also to early on recognize these cancer cells and kill them off. Now, and now is it so that before, it is amazing, if you look at one cell, if one cell will divide and make two cells, so the two identical cells, and that's amazing. Sometimes within 24 hours, a cell can multiply and become, for one cell, two. That means all what is in the cell must have been copied. So You have 46 chromosomes. Each chromosome is tens and thousands of genes, and one gene is some millions of DNA molecules. And that in 24 hours, it's all replicated. So it's actually amazing. The more you know, the more you are quiet. So you're only in awe how that works and how that goes. Yeah? So while you're sitting there at the end of this meeting, you have made tens of hundreds of thousands new cells. Yeah? And now the thing is that in this copying process, something can go wrong. That a wrong amino acid is built in. And therefore, each cell can. We have a system, we call that DNA repair. It's a system to recognize a mistake, yeah, and then to quickly repair that mistake. And therefore, DNA repair. That's on a DNA molecule level. So
well, Robert, let me just pragmatically say, I think for the class at this moment, because I'm looking at the clock, and
sorry.
No, that's okay. That, I mean, much of the focus of the anthroposophic, one of the focuses is really how can you support your immune system? Because if all of you are creating all these cancer cells, none of you at this moment, most likely, your body is competent enough, your dendritic cells, your killer T cells are active enough, your immune system works well to recognize, you have these wandering cancer cells in you, and they just get eliminated. That happens the day in and day out. So only when this balance gets disturbed, so either your immune system becomes less competent to not be able to recognize the cancer cells, or because of carcinogenic agents, whether it's viruses or other substances, you get more cancer cells, then all of a sudden the process of cancer starts going up. And Robert has been working, partly from his work with HIV at UCSF for many years, and then working with cancer patients, developing procedures and strategies to really think about it more. How can you boost your immune system? Because if that is competent, then cancer almost cannot be expressed, or if you have the look of cancer, slowly cancer may fade away. And that's probably what he did. And he's the living example of himself from many years ago. Robert, I want to have you, I wish you could have much more time, but I am stuck in the class for time today. Yeah. And so I would just say for the students, if you want to know more about that, whether you want to know more about the anthroposophical perspective of treatment of cancer, whether you want to know more about from this perspective, the foods you ought to be eating, or even the educational process, or even architecture, these are the topics that Robert will discuss in detail and share practices and techniques you can do in the class HH 650 that will be offered this spring semester, and it uniquely will meet on the first 3 weekends of the semester. So it's almost getting a whole class done right in the first couple of weeks.
Okay. Yeah.
But I have to say, I have to sort of say, we have to stop, otherwise I'm out of time. So I just want to thank you. Thank you so much for waking up at 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I go back to bed for an hour. So I go back to bed. Okay, thank you. Nice meeting you. And,
thank you, Robert.
Be good. Be good.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, thanks all of you for asking questions and being present. Just for a moment, get up, move around, just wiggle, because we've been watching the screen too much. Just jump up and down. Great. Okay. I'm going to Okay, we have two more tasks really for today. So I'm going to see if we can do it for the next almost half an hour, for the next 10 minutes or so. What I would like to do is have you form small groups and discuss your practice 15. Remember, that is the practice which you did for the whole week, in which you looked at your self-healing visualization, in which you drew that. And remember, what you want to ask really is also, how does the process from what you inspected to being well, how does that allow is the healing process, can that transform it to wellness? And also observe how it was for the people. So hopefully one or two of you will also share your pictures and observations with the class. So at least check, what was the effect on you? Did you notice? Well, let me ask a question for all of you. How many of you noticed after you did that, maybe you felt a little better, or the discomfort decreased? I'm always impressed that you can do this. That reminds me for one more thing. There were two parts, which we did not talk about for the self-healing project also, that the self-healing imagery is obviously, you can see the healing process. There's another process some of you can do for your self-healing project that's purely visualization. Let's say if you want to do something in the morning, you want to exercise, so then what you can see is before going to sleep, you can imagine yourself already getting up, putting you see yourself waking up the next morning. So you almost pre-program in imagery what you would like to do. But that's a separate process. So for now, let's go back to just reviewing with the group, with your small group, your practice 15, the benefits, how are you going to integrate that also into your, but for some of you, into your self-healing project. So let me break you up in groups. Let me get there. Breakout rooms. Where are we? Breakout rooms. Breakout rooms. Here we are. There are 45 people. That's it. If I make 4 people per room, that would be 11. I'll make it, no more than 4 people. I'll make it 11 people because there may be some TAs here present also. And I'll create this. I'll open up all the rooms. Now we need to reassign. I'll let you all join. Now I need to look for Chrissy.
Hi, Eric.
Hello, Chrissy.
Hi, I'm supposed to be with Alice.
I know. You need to be
Okay.
in roommate.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure, so I wanted to check.
You're already in roommate put together.
Okay.
My God. You're all together. I'm trying to be quick today. I should get to know you. You have such a lovely voice.
Oh, thank you.
Great. Okay.
So I think, wait, you can join breakout.
Room 8.
Oh, okay. Okay, I got it. Thank you, Eric.
Yes, you're in the same room with Alice. Liana Campbell, where are you? Again, let me find that in the breakout rooms. I'll open up all the rooms again. You're the same people. There we are. Well, welcome you all back from your breakout rooms. I realize that hopefully sharing your experience with each other is helpful. And that how many of you found even this week that when you were doing the practice, you experienced some slight success? Any of you? I'm always impressed when people do these practices, and it takes sometimes a little while. It may change. I highly recommend, and I'll ask the TAs to set up some time to send out to each of you that if you have any questions at all or difficulties or something isn't clear, that you can meet with the TAs more in detail or with me. I'll put a schedule down as well, because the more, remember, the project is yours. So enjoy the self practices, and I think we'll see you all next week. Okay. For returning the law.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank
Have a great day. Have a nice week. Bye-bye.
You too.
Can I ask you a question, Professor?
Sure, Leonard, absolutely.
Actually, 2 questions.
Oh, the first thing's difficult. No.
Only one, right?
No, you can ask both. No problem.
Okay. So this mistletoe injection, you know that like it's going to be really hard to get one. You know, I'm talking about mistletoe that Dr. Gorter.
Correct. So the way I have done it myself, and I for fun doing it for the next 5 weeks. So every 3rd day, I self-inject myself. But what I did is, there are 2 ways of doing it. One, you see an anthroposophical physician, which an anthroposophical physician, there's a whole society of those. They could possibly get the mistletoe for you, or the alternative is there's a medical supply house in Germany, which I then did, and I just ordered that from them, and then I ordered some, and
Syringes, yeah.
and I do this every third morning for fun. I don't know whether it's fun, but and then what I've observed is after the first time, my skin reacts to it. It's like almost getting a flea bite or a little insect bite. It feels like it's a little hard. That is a positive sign because it means my immune system is being activated.
So can you tell me which website would you share that for me?
Send me an email separately. But I am not a physician. Remember, I have no.
Okay.
You're totally on your own. The best way I would recommend is wait till the spring when Robert is in his class, and then take that class almost, and also get some guidance. Although he won't be able to be a physician for you.
Unfortunately, I'm not gonna take more than 2 classes anymore.
Just send me an email. Send him and me an email. You got his email already, right? Our Gorter numbers. And just send me an email.
At gmail.com, yeah.
Great. Just do that. And if you have any difficulties, let me know. How's that?
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds good. And a second question, I have no lights. So I have no internet, no computer. I'm like with
no problem.
Candles. So is it okay to submit all the homework tomorrow?
No problem.
Okay.
We're unbelievably flexible for people who do the work every day.
Okay, great. I don't want to lose any points.
I look for your logs. I look for your comments. I read your comments on the forum, and so far I can say you are a very active, proactive student.
Thank you. I like your
you're
class,
a great student. I like your comments. And so when people have difficulty, we are very open to try to support that. Great. No problem.
Yeah, I knew like a few things, but I also learned like several most amazing things from your class. So right. I'm like really, really glad that I'm taking it,
Well, I'm glad you're in the class because I like your comments.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Good night. Hello, let me look at Tiana. Tiana Peters, are you there?
Hi, I'm here. I had an email, or I had a question, but I think I'm just going to email it to you.
Okay, no problem. Just email it to me and then we'll do it, okay?
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Have a nice night.
I will. Well, we have Lauren today. Hello, Lauren. Oh, there she is. I love the presence. I already saw Tanner earlier. I don't know what happened. Some people have, but I'll do the two of you and I'll talk to the other ones in a little bit later. I'll make a note to myself that we have Lauren, and I'm so happy, both of you and Daniela. Yeah, I mean, I think, Lauren, you had some challenges finishing the log initially this week. Is that right? So I would say for both of you, when that happens, this is my guilty party today. No. Just send me an email that other stuff is going on in your world. Okay? I think that is really helpful. I know Danielle already did that because I know she was at a new job and all that stuff. So when I happened to, yesterday or the day before, I was looking at it, I realized, wait a minute, all those names belong to either Daniela or Lauren. But please, just let me know. So how are you? So now I think Danielle is almost updated again. Am I correct?
Yeah. And then I'm going back and actually I was going through whoever had any late work.
Yes.
I have a question about
I think there's very little late.
Significantly late. There was a few back all the way to the first. Like one of a couple of students, let us know, Alina. But here's the question: is when it's that late? I mean, I know we still give it credit. Do we only give part like 50% credit if it's 30, 60 days late, or how are you?
Okay, so if it feels that person really did it, truly did it, then you give them like 80%.
Okay.
If it feels like they're just filling out the forms for you, does that make sense? If they're just filling out the forms for you, so they get credit for the class, then you give them a little credit.
Okay.
Because basically,
that's why Tiana left. Tiana is one of my people. And I was like thinking maybe she said I graded her too low or something. She turned in 2 months late. But all right, I'll go back.
I can always change it, or you can change it as well. Okay, no problem. How about your voice? Your internet connection and voice is very difficult right now. No, it's okay.
No, I'm hoping it's only because of the weather. Because I have a different computer now.
It's no problem for now. But let me just check with Lauren how she's doing. Lauren, what's going on for you? Are you okay?
Yes, I am okay, and I am catching up on everything tonight.
Okay, so you don't have, we're basically caught up in terms of previous to today. So what is most important for both of you is to go through their week 1 logs that, and really see, are they doing it, what they need, and if you have any challenges with that, like to make it, people are doing it, but they're not clear what they're doing, please let me know. And I'll try to set up otherwise another meeting this week, like on Friday or Saturday for a moment. I don't know what day would work in the evening, maybe, to just for a moment to go over those. Does that make sense? Because I think we want to really get them to be on target, and it's harder online. With my afternoon class, it's easy. I can walk around the class and I know what people are doing, but online it's much harder in the groups to know where people are and what they need to be encouraged. So please look at the logs, make a number of encouraging comments. If they turn them in, basically do it, they'll get 10 points for the logs easily. But add comments, and if you have any questions, send me a note. Say, hey, can you look at that log or what's going on with the person? I would also recommend that you set up a time, an hour, which Danielle did, I think, for her students. I know you sent a nice note. Now I forgot what it was. Sorry, but I saw that. Send a note to your TAs and saying, hey, I'm available for a meeting. Does that make sense? And if you want me present, I could even be present at least sometimes. Questions?
No, that makes sense.
So you have two tasks to do. One is practice 15 and practice 16 week 1. And practice 16 week 1, really, I think, really look at it more in detail, saying what do they need to improve? What are they missing? And I know it's hard for you because you may not know, for me, it's easy to think of a project. You can do this, this, this. Okay. And so I'll try to set up a meeting maybe for all of us in which each of you can give one case and we can think of other options we can do for the person again.
Okay, sounds good.
Is that good? All right, then that's all easy. Piece of cake.
Do you see my chat?
What?
Do you see everything I'm typing in the chat just so you can hear me better?
Oh, I can see this. Let me see. Huh? Don't know. Huh. Don't know. Well, ideally, I think I'm looking. I don't know any of that. Let me look at. I'd have to go to iLearn for a moment. What I said.
I don't know. That was the one I was here, so I don't know.
Give me a moment, okay? I thought I cleaned them all pretty well up. There was an error the week before that. But let me go.
They said you said it in class last week.
Well, I may have said it in words incorrectly. That is always possible. But let me hold on for a moment. I'm going to turn the record off. That's what I should be doing anyway.